welcome to Stillspeakpod. Good evening. Well, it's evening for me. I was not even going to come on tonight because I had a bit of a busy, crazy day. But during my busy, crazy day, I listened to some things on YouTube, and I've told you that I like to listen to opposing views. And I do that so that it challenges me to think and, evaluate my own opinion or what I'm feeling about a particular story. And it just helps to listen to things that you don't agree with. It really does. And the best thing I ever purchased is wireless earbuds. No, I'm not sponsoring anything here. Just wireless earbuds in general are my life because, I've mentioned I have children, and so I'm constantly listening when I'm doing the laundry, driving somewhere, going to the grocery store. And I usually only keep one earbud in because I like to know what my kids are up to. Otherwise, I can't hear a damn thing. So, I went looking for some videos on Heidi Plank's story, and I was just trying to get a feel for what the environment is. Like, where is everybody at mentally on this case? Like, what are they thinking? I'm going to tell you what I'm thinking as of this moment. It could change. And, I'd like to hear your thoughts. What are you thinking? What are you leaning towards? So I think I said in my second or third video that I think this is more of a random disappearance, meaning I think she met up with somebody. I don't think the ex-husband's involved at this point, and I don't believe that it's connected to her job. But I also said that it's really, really easy to believe that this is connected to her job. I don't know how many of you are following the Murdaugh story out of Hampton County, South Carolina. If you're not, I suggest you follow it because it is a doozy. It's something like straight out of a Netflix series. It's insane. But the thing is that not every case is like that. But it does happen, right? Something that seems like straight out of a movie or a television show. Usually though, and I said this in the Brian and Gabby story, the easiest and simplest answer is usually the right one, right? And we can get really complex and really deep and think that this is some big, huge thing. And it may be. There's plausibility there. At the same time, you have to start to think about what you know, what are the circumstances, what are the facts, and whatnot. And I complained in my third video how we don't have a whole lot of facts. We don't. The police have not even held a press conference of any kind. So there's not a whole lot of fact, which of course makes this complex. So do I think that the ex-husband could be involved? I think it's plausible. Do I think that the job plays a role in all this and the boss and the da-da-da-da-da? Yeah, it's totally possible right now because we don't have a lot of facts. Is it possible that this was something random, like she met somebody for a date or she met somebody for a business transaction and something went wrong? Yes, it's possible as well. And the thing is that because so much is unknown, I in no way, shape, or form think that anybody who believes that the job is involved in all this is crazy. And I saw several people on YouTube in their videos almost going at people for believing that her job is involved and basically saying, this was all planted by the ex-husband and he put the thought in your head and you fell for it, basically calling you an idiot because you believe that what he's saying is true. And this wasn't one person. It was several people who were saying this. And in my head, I'm thinking like, but it's really easy to believe that the job is involved. And so no, I don't think that you're an idiot if you believe that. It doesn't matter where it came from. If you did your research and you ultimately came to the conclusion that her job is involved, then so be it. And it is plausible. Everything is on the table at this point. And I could be freaking wrong. I mean, I've been right on some cases. I've been wrong on other cases. I kind of had an idea on other cases where I never fully came to an opinion, but kind of assumed what was going to be the outcome. It varies. So, you're not going to get it right every single time. So, I could be totally wrong here, and it could be some big elaborate thing, or it can be just as simple as a custody battle between her ex-husband and ultimately something happened. Like I said, for me right now, especially after seeing the new footage that I shared this morning of her walking the dog, I'm really leaning towards this was something more random, somebody she was meeting with. And the reason I say that is because she doesn't seem scared. She doesn't seem in a hurry. She doesn't seem skittish. I mean, it's seconds long. I mean, how much can you get from that, right? I know. But just going off of that, she doesn't appear in a way that I think I would expect her to be if this was something deeper, if that makes sense. Actually, to me in the video, she looks very comfortable in this area, like she had been there before. She's walking kind of, with a little bounce in her step, I don't know how to explain it. She was walking faster than like just kind of moseying along, but she wasn't like speed walking. She just kind of looked like she fit in the area, like she'd been there before. And then you take into consideration her purse is not on her, which we see is on her when she left the home. She had it wrapped around her body. And somebody was like, why is the purse such a big deal? I saw them saying that in one of the YouTube video chats. And I think it's a big deal because, and I commented on my video and I said this, after thinking about it, I really don't think that Heidi would have left her purse in her Range Rover in downtown LA. I just don't believe that. I mean, LA is known for crime, and if you're a local, you know that. I mean, why on earth would you leave your purse in your Range Rover? That's just insanity. And so I thought to myself, maybe she was in somewhere in that area and she just took the dog for a walk. Maybe he, went to the bathroom, and then the video we see is her going back to wherever she was, and that's kind of why she's walking a little bit faster and doesn't look to be trying to get the dog to pee, which makes sense because she's walking on this big sidewalk. I highly doubt she took the dog to go pee on this big sidewalk. She'd probably walk to an area that has, been designated for dogs, which apparently this building has, okay? And she probably had to put her mask on to walk through whatever building she was going through. And then when she got outside, she took the mask off, and that's why she's carrying it. It's probably gotten a little chilly outside because now it's in mid-afternoon. So now she's got the sweater on. Or the place that she was inside of may have had AC, and she put her sweater on. Like, I wear a sweater in my freaking house because my husband loves the AC. And then, she's like, oh, I got to run outside and take the dog for a walk. I just don't get any type of vibe from her. And I really wish there was more footage because she just looks like a regular person walking down the street with her dog. Now, I want to get to something because I've noticed that... Anyway, it doesn't matter. So let me get to this point. So I kept seeing, people saying, I don't even think that Jason Sugarman is under investigation anymore. I heard that from 2 different people today. That they charged his business partner. He's the one who went to jail. And as far as what they can find, no, he's not under investigation. And I started thinking about it, and I'm like, okay, so all these media outlets are reporting that Sugarman is under investigation. And then I thought about that, and I'm like, law enforcement, no matter what agency it is, doesn't really come out and start discussing all these things that they're investigating, right? They don't share all the evidence and information they have while it's ongoing. You usually find about that later or in a trial or what have you. And I'm like, why would these media outlets keep saying that? So I wanted to go deeper into that because I've said on here, I'm not a media person. And, I was like, are they just going off old information? Why do people have this impression that these charges against Jason Sugarman basically were dropped and Galanis is the one who went to jail, and that was the end of the story? So now what sucks is when you're looking up something multiple times a day, every single day, then when you Google something that's somewhat close to what you normally Google, all that comes up is the thing that you Google several times a day, every day. So what do I mean by that? Well, as soon as you put Jason Sugarman's name into Google, it comes up with every article I've ever read on Heidi's case. And so that's frustrating, right? So I'm clicking, page 3, page 4, give me something other than the headlines of the media. I've read all these because, once you click on a link and now you can tell which ones you clicked on. I clicked on all of them, so I had to go for pages. And I came across information on sex website, and it was dated in the beginning of 2020. It was January of 2020. And it was basically a motion to dismiss, okay? And it was on behalf of Jason Sugarman. And what stood out to me was that it was in the District Court, Southern District of New York. That piqued my interest because I'm like, wait, is this why nobody can find anything on this, quote unquote investigation or court filings, because they're all looking in California and specifically the LA area, and maybe people just didn't see the New York information. Because this was new to me. When I saw the District of New York, I'm like, wait a minute, what? So I was a little confused at first, and I was like, all right. And so I'm looking through the document to make sure it's the right Jason Sugarman, right? Because I'm like, I'm sure there's many Jason Sugarmans in the world. So I'm reading it, and I'm like, okay. And then I got to thinking, and I'm like, all right. So I did a different keyword search. So then I went Jason Sugarman, District of New York, and I put in 2020. And the next thing I found was dated September 30th of 2020. And basically it's 25 freaking pages. And at the end of it, it says, for the foregoing reasons, Sugarman's motion to dismiss is denied. The clerk of court is directed to terminate the motion pending at ECF number 38, dated September 30th, 2020, and then it's signed William H. Pauley III. I'm not going to sit here and read to you 25 pages that you can read yourself, right? Do you really want to sit here and listen to me read 25 pages? Probably most likely not. I've only read probably about 13 of the pages. I'm not even done with it myself. And so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to link it in the description if you want to kind of just, look it over, not even read the whole thing, just kind of get an idea of what it's all about. But basically, he wanted it to be dismissed in January of 2020. Judge comes back all the way in September and is like, nah, not happening. Now, you have to keep in mind COVID, right? So his motion was filed right before the pandemic really hit America, right? And right before we started to shut down and all that jazz. And, the courts went even into lockdown. And so everything is backed up. So it makes sense that 8 months later, there's this denial. And it also makes sense that, because of the lockdown, with everything being backed up, it's going to push everything out, okay? And so at this point, I'm like, all right, so now I have this paper. So we have the January of 2020 paper. We have the September 30th, 2020 paper that I found. And then I went looking again and I found another one. And this time it was with the Supreme Court. Now, this one is specifically Devin Archer versus United States of America, and it's called A Petition for the Right of... Now, I had to Google how to pronounce this word because legal words and jargon is so ridiculous. So, certiorari, according to Google, we're going to call it the right of cert, okay? Because it's just easier. So now this one's, about Devin Archer, but Jason Galanis and Jason Sugarman are both mentioned in this 109-page document. Now, I want to say this. I did a very deep dive into this case, last week, sometime before my family came into town. And in all the things that I got into that day, 60-something tabs opened, and all these different forums and chats and what have you, I never saw anybody link what I'm looking at. And when I heard people today saying, I think, the case against Sugarman is done and he's not actually under currently investigation, at that point I'm like, okay, let me look. And when I found this, I thought to myself, okay, so I'm not crazy, and maybe I didn't overlook this at some point because it appears other people have not seen this either. At least that's my impression. That being said, if you have seen these specific links that I'm talking about, great. It's new to me then, okay? Because I did not see any of this. And I was just really kind of shocked by the whole New York paperwork. Just because for some reason I just assumed that whatever is going on, court or investigation, whatever, would be out of California. So I was like, oh, that's odd. And then I thought about it further and I was like, okay, now this is really weird, but this could just be some kind of coincidence here, is that Heidi is from New York State. She's actually from the Buffalo area. So anyways, we're not going to go through 109 pages or 25 pages here. Whether you believe this company is involved in the disappearance of Heidi or not, if you're bored and you want to sit and go through all these, you can probably learn a ton of information from them. And like I said, they will be in the description. The only connection that Jason Sugarman somewhat has, and I say that loosely, has to the area that Heidi went missing from is his father-in-law is the Golden State Warrior owner, and they sometimes play at the Staples Center. Actually, correction, he is the co-executive chairman. I mean, I don't think that's really a big deal, to be honest with you. But it is a semi-connection. Because the Staples Center is about 200 yards away from the Hope and Flower building. Now, a quick change of direction here. One of the friends, actually two of Heidi's friends, in the video of her this morning that was released, they did an interview with a local station, and they were saying if she went back in the building, how did she get back in the building? And so people were saying, how did they know she went back in the building? Why are they saying that? And I think that sometimes people forget that those who know somebody who's either the victim or the person missing, they're speculating just like you and I, okay? They don't know, and people are under this false assumption that the police or law enforcement, who's ever involved, whether it's the FBI or the local police, whatever, they don't share with friends and family. You think they do, but they don't, and everybody assumes that, and we saw that a lot in the Gabby Petito case. People assumed that Gabby's parents had so much information that we didn't have, and that wasn't true. They were finding out things as we were finding them out, and that's the case in every story. And so I think we have to keep that in mind, that these people are speculating. They're looking for their friend, and they're having the same thoughts we are. They're wondering, they're curious, And that does not exclude Jim Wayne, the ex-husband. And so many people are like, he's the one putting out the narrative. He's the one who got everybody to shift to this idea that it's the boss. Well, I understand how people can think that's the case, but you also have to remember that the media also brought it to everybody's attention that she works for Jason Sugarman. And that started in the local papers, and they would have known that as looking her up, right? They're going to do a basic search of her and see where she works and who her boss is. And if they covered the story of Galanis and Sugarman, that's going to ring a bell. And then they're going to be like, oh, hey, by the way, she also works for this guy. But yes, Jim was one of the first people that talked about it possibly being connected to her job. Now, it could very well be, it's not necessarily to drill a narrative or to distract or make people look another way. It could be that he, too, is speculating. And his speculation was, Heidi went missing. Maybe it has to do with her boss. This footage that came out today leads me to believe at this point that unless he hired someone, I'm not really sure how he could be involved. Because if she left that game and he said that she, would sit in the bleachers by them, I'm assuming he meant him and his significant other, and then she would move to another bleachers. So that would mean that either him and his significant other, and I'm not saying her name because she's really irrelevant to the story, so that they left together and then followed Heidi and at some point hurt Heidi. Or that would mean that he left the game, which obviously his son and his significant other would have known about, and then all of a sudden Heidi's missing. Because this video that was taken of her was less than an hour after leaving the game. And the dog was found about 3 hours after her leaving the game. So this leaves a very small window. So this isn't that she went missing from someplace else. No, she definitely went missing from this building because she's outside the building. Before, we can kind of be like, well, maybe somebody did something to her and brought the dog to this building. No, she brought the dog to this general area. Now, this is off the top of my head, but when I looked up on Google from the field of her son's game to this building, it said it was like 17 miles, 16 miles. But because it's LA and LA traffic is horrific, allegedly, I've never been there. I only heard how horrible it is. It takes you about 35, 40 minutes, okay? So if this was a less than an hour after leaving the game, say she got there in 40 minutes, and let's say this video was like 50 minutes to 55 minutes after she left the game. So that means she would have driven with the dog, who probably had to go to the bathroom. And if she was visiting somebody in this beautiful building and it was their apartment, you're not going to want to take the risk that your dog's going to have an accident in there. And the thing is that this particular building has a parking garage. Now the residents have assigned parking spots, but I assume there's ones for visitors. We have no idea if she parked her car in there or if she parked up the road, but it's possible that maybe she parked the car and then took the dog to pee and then went to meet somebody in the building. Or she parked the car, she went to meet somebody in the building, and then was like, oh, you know what, let me go take the dog out real quickly. I don't know, because this purse thing kind of throws me off. I mean, could she have left the purse in the car? Sure, maybe she felt safe because it was in a parking garage that allegedly has good security. But I don't know about that, because some residents have written reviews and have talked about their cars being broken into in that parking garage. And I would think that whoever she was visiting would be like, you know, where's your purse? Or maybe not, if it was a guy. Maybe not. Maybe they wouldn't have asked her that. But I don't know. I just think like whoever she was visiting would have mentioned like, hey, you probably don't want to do that. But maybe not. Maybe they didn't. And I'm more cautious than most people. Actually, I'm like neurotically cautious. So I guess for me, when I didn't see the purse, I'm just like, I don't think she left this purse in her car. I just don't see that being the case. Like, I would never in a million years leave my purse in any city in my car. And the only way I would do that is if I had my wallet and cell phone on me, which in the video, we're not going to be able to tell that, right? If she has it in her pocket, you may or may not see it, but she's got a sweater on, so it's hard to see. Sorry, I know this is like a whole bunch of ramblings tonight. Again, I had like a rough day. I usually come like prepared with what I want to speak about, and tonight I just was like, just press record and talk, would you? So yeah, I don't know. As far as Jim Wayne, I would think like he would have, if he's involved, he would have had to have hired somebody. And then my brain goes, okay, well, if you're hiring somebody, why would you have them do something to her in the middle of the day rather than, something at night? I don't know. So, Jim and Heidi had a brutal custody battle that has gone on for many years. And so, of course, you have to look at him, right, and think, oh, well, it went on until August. And then she goes missing about 2 months later, so maybe there's something there. I get that. The problem is that brutal custody battles go on every single freaking day, everywhere. I have several friends who are going through them, and they're really brutal. And, the only thing that changes it here is that, somebody's missing. So just like the job thing, you have to consider the possibility of his involvement. But the small issue I have here is, what if this was reversed? What if, it was Heidi who kind of gave him hell in custody and it was him who went missing? Would people pay mind to that? I'm not quite sure, because I've seen in other cases where a male has been abused in a relationship and he doesn't get the same treatment as a woman who was abused. I'm sorry, I've seen it firsthand. You don't have to agree with it, but I saw it with my own two eyes. And so I had to think about this, and I'm like, women do these things all the time in court for custody. Fight on child support, fight on visitations. Does anybody really say anything or care then? I don't know. Again, the only thing that's different here is that one is now missing. Can be related, cannot be related. We don't know. And then we go to Sugarman, which we've talked about the Sugarman theory a million times now, it feels like. And no, he was not going to be criminally charged, but he is, he was charged in 2019, just not criminally, okay? So no, he wasn't going to go to jail. But what's key here is that his suit is about them trying to recoup this $9 million that they believe he defrauded, embezzled, whatever word you want to use. So it's a money solely lawsuit, right? And who was his financial person? Heidi, right? So it's not that he would want her gone because he's risking going to prison. No, that's off the table at this point. But what is on the table is $9 million. And the person who takes care of your finances is now missing, right? So again, it's really easy to believe that it's connected. And I'm really kind of bothered that there are some people out there who are making videos and kind of implying that anybody who actually believes that is some kind of like idiot. Well, I'm here to tell you, you're not an idiot if you don't believe that. Or you do believe that, excuse me. Now, the only person who's been talkative in this case, besides her friends who are, desperately searching for her, is Jim. Jim's been talkative, and now he's not talkative, as I mentioned. And I don't blame him because, this happens in other cases. They speak out, they get attacked, and then they're like, screw it. And they just stop talking. But Sugarman has not addressed anything, and that's kind of wild because there are hundreds of articles with him mentioned and Heidi. And me, I'd be like, oh my gosh, I need to go and set this record straight or something. Like, I don't know if I completely keep quiet. At the same time, I believe that people should remain quiet and not do media interviews. I think that you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, and so you might as well just not do it at all. So Sugarman hasn't spoken out. Neither has her on-again, off-again boyfriend. Her mother did briefly. And now we have this footage of her near this building. I doubt she was just like, oh, I'm going to leave my son's game and go to take a stroll in downtown LA. Clearly she was meeting up with someone. And so, like I said this morning in my video, why hasn't that person come forth to say, oh, we actually had a meeting set up at 3 o'clock. I saw her until about 3:45, and then she left, and then after that, I don't know what the hell happened to her. If they're innocent, like, why don't you come forth and say such? If you're scared, come forth, after speaking to a lawyer. Something. So that's kind of alarming to me that this person hasn't done that, and it implies that, obviously that they have something to hide. But at the same time, being silent doesn't mean you have something to hide. It's just odd that they wouldn't, if they were innocent, to just kind of clear their name and say, hey, we met up, whatever. So now you look at this and you go, okay, Jim, Sugarman, boyfriend, some other random person. Everybody's quiet except for Jim. Okay, does that mean Jim's guilty because he's talkative? No, because now he's went silent. So there's that. And the thing is we don't know if the boyfriend and Sugarman have spoken with police. I'm going to assume that they have. Or they at least were contacted, and then, it had to be decided whether or not they were going to lawyer up. We just haven't heard from them. So now if you take Jim down, okay, because he was Mr. Chatty Cathy, now you have boyfriend and Sugarman, both are silent, and whoever Heidi went to go meet with is silent. So is the person Heidi went to go meet with silent because that is one of the two, Sugarman or the boyfriend? That's possible. So now, let's briefly talk about this boyfriend. Okay. He works for Mark Zuckerberg and his wife's foundation called the Chan Zuckerberg Foundation. Okay? I have to say the last name like that because I always want to say Zuckerberg. I'm sorry. And this foundation, actually in April of 2021, is teaming up to spend millions of dollars to help South Los Angeles to put up low-cost housing. In addition, Facebook, which is not who he works for, has a location in Los Angeles. Actually, South and East LA. So now, if you recall from one of my other videos, I talked about how allegedly him and her had gotten into an argument, I guess somewhat recently, because she wanted him to come to LA and he couldn't because he's in San Francisco, which is, a bit of a distance, and he had to work. Here's something to think about. Have you ever met up with somebody who's like, oh, hey, I'm going to be in town for business. Meet me for lunch. You ever had that happen? Now, where I live is somewhat of a tourist area, and I have a lot of friends and family that come here to go do touristy type of stuff. And they'll be like, hey, I'm going to be in town from this date to this date. Let's meet up and have dinner. Let's meet up and have lunch. 9 out of 10 times, I can't do it, but that is what happens. So maybe there's a possibility here that he had to go into LA area for, some type of business meeting, and he was only going to be there for 2 or 3 hours, and he was like, hey, come by and we'll go to this restaurant. That would sort of explain why she appeared anxious at her son's game, because if she really wanted him to come into town to see her and she was anxious, and that would, if you're excited, make you appear anxious, and then you would leave early from the game so you can go meet that person. And that lines up to me. The only issue I have with that is, what's his motive, right? The argument over, you live here, I live there. I don't think that's motive at all. What would be his motive for something? Plus, he does work for this foundation, and he is a, some sort of an executive or VP of some sort. So, that's the only problem, right? Now, does there always have to be a direct motive, meaning a planned motive? No. Or anything that's driving you? Could it be that they did meet up and there was some big explosive argument that got out of hand? Yes, of course. It happens all the freaking time. So, I guess that's a maybe motive. And the next issue is that her car hasn't been found. So something happened to her at this building, and somebody took her car and put it someplace. Because we haven't heard that the car was found in the parking lot or around the building, and I have to assume that police have checked. Wouldn't that be the first thing she checked? And so, if it wasn't there, then somebody took the car and put it somewhere. So then I think about that, and I'm like, all right, well, if he was, now this is all allegedly. This isn't even my opinion. It's all maybes, possiblies, okay? Just want to make that clear, cover my ass here. That if he came into town, if he didn't have a car, because let's say he flew in and then took an Uber, right? Is it possible that the car is in another city? Maybe. I don't know. Just something that came off the top of my head there. Because I think we're easy to dismiss the boyfriend because we're like, well, he lives in San Francisco and he's quiet, and they didn't even seem like they were serious. But it's plausible. What I just said is plausible. I don't know. So anyway, I think I'm going to wrap it up for the night and call it a day. When I was covering the Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie case, somebody commented on it and said, this was in the very beginning when it all began, that, he was like, it'll be really interesting to look back on these theories to see how dumb they were. And I laughed because I follow other cases. I know that when you go back in hindsight and read those types of things, you're like, oh my God, some of these discussions and theories were ridiculous, right? And in the Brian Laundrie and Gabby Petito case, the theories were insane. They still are, okay? It's calmed down significantly, but there are people still holding on there. And And so, yeah, when you go back and you look at those theories and whatnot, yeah, I think we all got a little overboard crazy with some of the theories. And it's going to be really interesting to see what the turnout here is. Heidi, on the run? Maybe. Was it the ex, or the on again and off again boyfriend? Maybe. Is it the business? Maybe. Is it the ex-husband? Maybe. The only thing I think I'm almost positive on is I do not believe that she is in protective custody witness protection, because it doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make any sense. Especially the fact that the police went into her home and they had guns on them. If they wanted to go and retrieve evidence, she could have just cooperated and given them the evidence. And, it just doesn't add up. It just doesn't. So I'm crossing that off my list. Is it possible? I guess, maybe. But for me, nah. So I'll be interested to see what happens here. Of course, I'm hoping she is found okay. That being said, it's not likely, okay? We're going on almost a month now, and, it's not looking good for her. But you never know. You never know. Remember that. I actually have a list of stories I want to bring you, and I've been working on each person's case over the last week. The issue is that, I want to have my ducks in a row. I want to make sure I have all the information, and it takes time. And some of them are a little bit older, not years, but like a couple months ago they went missing, and some of them just need a little bit of attention. And I'm going to be bringing those to you. The only reason why I brought you current cases, or why I do that, is because they're unfolding in real time, and I want to be proactive on those. And it's not to say that the other cases are not important. Of course they are, but there's no movement in those. And so it gives me an extra day or two to help out somebody who's currently, had just gone missing. Like the one I did last night about Jacob Clare and his missing son Noah Clare and his niece Amber Clare. Then the video I did the other day of Melissa Trumpy, Heidi, who else? Oh, the Selby case, Carol Selby, her son Dwayne Selby, and now we know deceased Jack Grimes. So those are all current ones. I actually recently updated each title of any type of update, if they were found safe, if they were found deceased. So if you were wondering about any of those people that I've done videos about, I updated the titles so that you'll know. And that's it. I am going to go shower and try to enjoy the rest of my crazy day and go off into dreamland. Until next time.